Efficiency of effectiveness is what every organizational leader strives for when they look to lead their teams, inspiring them to maximize their personal performance with the resources allotted. However, according to some new Gallup research, organizational leaders still have to connect the dots when it comes to convincing their employees that they're embedded in today's organizational and company culture. Gallup says that only 22% of today's workforce believe that they're fully integrated into their team's culture and environment. Meanwhile, research from the Harvard Business Review indicates only 8.7% of today's American teams consider themselves to be high performing. Factors such as developing trust was a major factor in determining whether a team was high performing in this Harvard study. The research also indicated that high-performing teams are 3 times more likely to begin a discussion on how they are going to work together to ensure that their operation is effective, efficient, and productive, paving the way for fewer misunderstandings and greater collaboration as projects continue down the road. This, my friends, is all good news for my good friend, Marci Schnapp. She's the founder of Collab Genius, a behavioral science-driven platform which modernizes the way executives, coaches, search firms, recruiters, business consultants, and organizations build high-performing teams, all while helping individuals achieve their goals by becoming better team players with over 20 years of experience in areas such as talent assessment, leadership strategy, and team development. Schnapp has developed and dedicated her career into helping businesses maximize their success through data-driven decisions. And she joined me this week to talk about how data is helping organizations make smarter hiring decisions, the future of human resources assessment and talent evaluation, how her innovative platform is helping executives make smarter hiring decisions, and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Marci, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn about Collaborative Genius, my friend, and how you help businesses and organizations build high-performing teams. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin, for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Marci, I know that you have spent over 20 years in the field of human resources and helping organizations build more high-performing teams, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you, what do you think is the greatest lesson or piece of information that you've picked up along the way that helps you really help organizations fortify their team building? What are your thoughts there?
There's been so many lessons, but I think the biggest lesson is you cannot put a round hole in a square peg. And just to elaborate a little bit on that, in another kind of cliche, is you can't judge a book by its cover either. And so I think that that's what happens a lot, is that we meet somebody, we kind of fall in love. We're judging the book by the cover. Everything looks great on the outside, and then we hire them or we join them in some collaboration or partnership. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves, we have a round hole, but we're working with a square peg. And because we've made all these upfront judgments, we're trying to then continue to put the square peg in the round hole. And that doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marci, I know that you are the founder of Collab Genius, where you help executive search firms and recruiters and consultants and coaches build high performance teams through a role-based talent insights and AI driven analysis, my friend. So tell me about your lab genius and why you came up with the idea, my friend.
Okay. Well, the idea happened over time. It kind of percolated. It started out, I was recruiting. I started a firm way back when called New Media Links. And I was one of the first recruiters in the area when the internet was brand new and companies were looking for talented individuals and to build teams that could help them with, internet related projects, which was, huge. And so through doing that, I saw the problems that occurred in the process. And then once people were in organizations, I always had heard the side of the people in the jobs and working on teams complaining about, their bosses, their colleagues, the organizations. And then I heard from organizations, and team leads and executives in companies complaining about, their team members. So I heard both sides of the story, and, there's always something in the middle that is the reality. And so after listening and working in, that kind of environment, the best that I could for about 10 plus years, I set out to do something new and find a better way. And that's when I met a behavioral scientist who had this new technology called role-based assessment. So fast forward, I did a bunch of research on the different assessments that were available. And I had known from my practice in New Media Links the way that companies were recruiting and the way that I was evaluating talent and the way that they were evaluating talent, and this big emphasis on personality. And I always recognized that that wasn't the way to go, and that wasn't really it just wasn't effective. So upon meeting the behavioral scientist and studying, I decided to incorporate her assessment, or her team, the assessment, in my organization. I pivoted. I called it Team Quest Advisors. And then I was really helping my organizations build teams using this talent assessment and team building, high performance team building strategy. Fast forward, I had the opportunity to purchase the software. And then I rebranded and really have come to understand that everything really is about collaboration, that no one person, none of us does anything all on our own. And so it's the collaboration between two people that really creates the genius in all of us when we work with other people. And so that's how that came about.
Yeah, and Marci, I'm also curious to ask you, for every executive or anyone that runs an organization, they're always wanting to save time, money, and reduce the risk. And I know that you work with people, and your approach through collaborative genius allows them to do that. So what does that mean to you, to save money, reduce risk, and get your time back as an executive, my friend. What do you think that means to you?
Those are the three hugest things, in all of our lives, not just in business, but that's what I think, all of us are looking to do. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. So if we can be effective, and use our time wisely and reduce risk, that means we're going to have more time to do the things that we want to do, to pursue our hobbies and passions, and spend time with our family and friends, or whatever it is people or a group of people like to do. So in terms of how I work with Collab Genius to help my clients save time, money, and reduce risk, when you're using an assessment up front, you are getting information, data about an individual that you cannot get through an interview process. So you're getting more accurate information, and you're not spending time on a lengthy interview process just to gather information that really may not be accurate, because just on any given day, we incorporate information differently. So this way, it's an objective way to gather information, and it's efficient. You send somebody a link, they do it when they have time, you get it back. There's no scheduling interviews and all of that time waste. There's no waiting for someone who may not show. If you send them a link and they don't finish the assessment, or they don't bother to do it, that's fine. You've spent a minute sending somebody a link. You haven't sat at your desk waiting for someone to come. And then in terms of, so that saves you time. Time is money, so it's saving you money. When you have better information, you're making better decisions, so that's also saving money. And you're also making decisions much more quickly, so that's saving time. And then reducing risk. Again, when you're giving everybody the same assessment, the same questionnaire, and you're getting back the reports that are the same, the categories are the same, the information is different for each person, but you're really looking at apples to apples. So when you're making decisions based on accurate data and you're making them quickly, then you're going to reduce your risk of the collaboration or the hire of it not working out. And when things don't work out, they're expensive. There's stress, there's money, there's time, all of that is wasteful when, and you want to reduce the risk of that as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marcia, I'm curious to also ask you about your definition of how you define, a high-performing team. Because, last year, the Harvard Business Review reported that only 8.7% of American workforce teams believe that they're sort of high-performing and connected to their sort of talent leaders. And Gallup reported also last year that only 22% of today's workforce feels connected in terms of being a high-performing team. So how do you define high-performing teams, and how do you think we can get those numbers to be higher? What are your thoughts there?
Certainly. Well, I think, we need look no further than sports. The high-performing teams win. They win the champions, or they semis, they come in, athletes, they come in first, second, third. Those are high-performing teams. Those are teams of people that work together to achieve common goals. And so the proof is in the pudding, the achievements happen. So, that's how I define a high-performing team, is through accomplishment. I think, getting back to that analogy, the square, putting a round peg in a square hole, that's the disconnect. And when people, when team leads or executives try to do that to individuals, then there's a disconnect, and the team can't operate as a cohesive unit when people are in the wrong positions. So if you take a hockey team, and if you put a goalie and you make him or her be center, they're going to have, the team is going to be disconnected because people aren't in their right positions. So that's how high performance teams operate. They have the right person in the right position, and everybody knows what position each person on the team plays and who to go to for what, and they know the plays. And so they work together to achieve a common goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So building on that, Marci, I'm also curious to ask you, what do you think goes into precisely identifying, top talent to fill vacancies and designing teams that have a collaborative mindset and who are aligned? What are your thoughts there?
Okay, you're asking me some challenging questions. This is great. Okay, so what goes into it is a lot strategy. It has to be strategic, and also I believe that it has to be that there has to be a team or a group of people that are responsible for this strategy and that they implement the strategy. It's not just handing it over to somebody who maybe doesn't have the experience to be able to identify the talent. And it's not about, a lot of people think, oh, if I find the perfect person, that's all I need. But there really is no such thing as perfect. So it's about, again, finding the right combination of people who can work together to achieve something. So I think what goes into it is understanding, what are the goals, what are we trying to achieve, and then who do we need to do this? What resources do we need? We need someone on our team who can solve these tough problems, and then we need another person who can manage the resources and manage the finance and get the resources to the people on the team who need them. And then we may need another person who categorizes and organizes the knowledge of the team. So it's really understanding what the different positions are that need to be played for the team to accomplish its mission. And then it's about actively looking for individuals who really want to do that role, who want to serve the team in the way that is required, and who have a mindset of collaboration. And this is what separates high performing teams from the other teams. People on high performing teams have that mindset that it is a team effort. I recently watched the movie Diana Nyad, I believe that she's a swimmer who swam from Cuba to Florida. And at the end of the movie, it was so beautiful. She talked about, yes, she's a swimmer and it looks like it's just her, but it's a whole team of people that helped her to achieve that goal. And in the beginning of the movie, she really is of that mindset, me, and she doesn't accomplish what she wants to accomplish. And it isn't until she makes the shift and understands how important her team members are and how important it is for not only for them to support her, but she needs to support them to accomplish her goals. So it's identifying people with that mindset. And that's not easy because everyone will talk the talk. Oh, I'm a team player. Everybody thinks they're a team player. But when push comes to shove, we all know, living in the world that we live in, that that's just not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also say in order to avoid costly hiring mistakes, it's also important to understand the behaviors of the candidates that we're interviewing or interacting with to sort of understand their behavior to reduce stress responses as well as gaining clarity by building and understanding on how to rectify blind spots, both in the hiring process and ultimately developing relationships, my friend. So tell me, what do you think goes into understanding a client behavior and eliminating blind spots? What are your thoughts there?
So I think this is where technology comes in. I think using an assessment like Collab Genius's role-based assessment is a phenomenal way to do that because that's what it does. Because when I, as a person who's interviewed countless people over so many years, when I'm meeting people, I'm basically, falling in love or falling in like, I genuinely like people. I want to see the best. And especially, as a recruiter, wanting to make placements because that's my goal and to make a living. So wanting to really see people and say, okay, yeah, that person's going to be a great fit. That person told me this. Sure, why not? And sort of going through the process like that. But there's a lot of blind spots because I'm unable, just being as a human being, to see, well, maybe that person really, won't be the best person, and there's a whole slew of things that go into to the other side of that coin, and then that can take me down another road where I don't see the good in anybody, and I'm eliminating so many people that I don't even send somebody to my client. So it happens both ways. And so using a technology is objective, and using a good technology that has been developed by behavioral scientists over quite a long period of time, and I've been using it in my practice for over 10 years with excellent results from my clients. Using something like this does eliminate those blind spots, because it really will give a result that will indicate if the person would be a good fit for the job and the team. And if they are, amazing. And if they're not, that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not a right or wrong, perfect or not perfect. It's about fit. And we're not doing anybody any favors by recruiting somebody who's not a good fit. We're not helping them, and we're not helping ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marci, what do you think it means in today's, hiring culture and HR culture to go beyond the resume and really judge people from going beyond the resumes? What do you think going beyond the resume means in today's hiring culture, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
That's such a good question. I really love that question, because I think that, like, sort of the immediate answer to that is, oh yeah, I'm going to go beyond the resume. I'm going to get to know the person. I'm going to find out their personality. But I don't look at it like that, because the resume is the past, and the resume is what someone was able to do at that point in time with whatever resources they had from whichever point they started. But it doesn't indicate what they can do. And going beyond the resume, and this is why I love using role-based assessment, because the results indicate what a person can do. And most of the time, what they can do is different than what they've done. So that's, I think, what going beyond the resume means in the short kind of.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Last year, our friends over at LinkedIn reported that 37% of hiring managers would go beyond a candidate, considering a candidate, if they had frequent job changes, and that may deter them from pursuing that candidate, because most recruiters, I guess, find that to be a red flag if they go from one job to another, months in and months out, my friend. So, what are your thoughts on sort of that finding by LinkedIn of 37% of hiring managers saying that they would be hesitant to pursue a candidate's application if they see they've really jumped from job to job? What are your thoughts there?
I'm not surprised by that. But again, I don't think that's a fair way to judge somebody. It's just not fair, because there are so many circumstances why somebody leaves a job. And, we all have a right to leave a job if we don't like the job. Companies have, the opportunity to let anybody go for any reason. And there are so many different reasons. I speak to people all the time that, companies lay off people, companies take different directions in strategy. There's so many reasons. So to judge somebody because they left a couple of jobs, I don't think that's fair. And I don't think there's any, what are you going to say? Oh, this person jumped 3 times, this person jumped 5, this person jumped 10. I don't think that's really a fair way to judge somebody, and not even to give them an opportunity when you have an assessment that you can do efficiently and say, okay, so you know what, this person's resume maybe doesn't look the greatest. Maybe they've jumped, or died. You shouldn't even use the word jumped. Maybe they've left a number of positions, but let's ask them to do the assessment. Let's see where they are today and if they're a fit for this position.
Yeah, absolutely. So, building on your last answer, I'm curious then to ask you your definition of what do you think it means to have loyalty as an employer today, or as an employee? How do you think that relationship is changing when it comes to loyalty from a professional standpoint? What are your thoughts there?
Okay, loyalty. Unfortunately, I think it's kind of a dead thing. I think dogs are loyal. I think that it's about relationships, and I think that if people are treated fairly and they're on high performing teams and their work that they're doing is aligned with the work that they want to do, that they're talented at, and they're rewarded fairly, then, or compensated fairly, then I think that there's no reason why that relationship wouldn't continue. But if those things aren't happening, then it's fair to say that the employee would look for another position. And then the same thing for an employer. If an employer is noticing that somebody who's working in their organization just isn't interested anymore, or whatever it is, then they have to make that decision if they want to continue to work with that person. So yeah, that's my thoughts on loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got one more in terms of findings from LinkedIn, my friend. They also reported that last year that 54% of hiring managers look for candidates who are interested or committed to the idea of upscaling their skills, or when it comes to continuing education or strengthening their skill base. They also found that 48% of those same hiring managers give extra consideration to candidates who can start immediately, and 40% consider candidates willing to work in a full-time office environment, my friend. So with more and more people sort of going the hybrid work model, I'm curious, what comes to mind when you hear those statistics, my friend?
Well, the first one doesn't surprise me. I mean, updating a skill set, I think that's important, that's important for any position, especially now with AI. I think, it's important to learn how, AI, to learn about AI, how it works, how you can use it to help you in your position. So I think it is important to whatever field you're in. If you're, we all go to the doctor. We wouldn't want to go to a doctor who isn't up to date on the latest research, or, the latest, using newer technology to make diagnosis or to do procedures. So I think that that's obviously very, very important. So that makes sense. Second stat, I'm not exactly remembering what it was. Can you just refresh my memory? The second stat you read?
Yeah, no problem. 48% of hiring managers today, the study found that they give extra consideration
who can start immediately.
Candidates who can start immediately. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that makes sense. Listen, when you need something, you need something. Right? When you have a position to fill, you have a position to fill. So, a lot of times a client or a company will wait for the right, for the person to start if they need to give some notice, which is, a notice period, a couple of weeks, maybe a month. But beyond that, that makes sense. And I think when people want to leave, they want to leave, and they're ready to start something new. So I think, but then there's always exceptions and things that can be negotiated. So, but, certainly I understand that stat. And I think it was just, you said 47%, so it was just under 50%. So again, I think each scenario really just have to look at it independently and negotiate for that. But I understand that stat. And then I think the last one was about hybrid working.
Yeah, the last one is about 40% of hiring managers give extra consideration to candidates who are willing to work in a full-time office environment. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, particularly with the continued rise in hybrid working and the importance of flexibility in that stat. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's similar to, negotiating a starting period. I think it depends really on the position. There are certain, it depends on the job, and the position, and the individual. I think there are some professions that lend themselves to remote work. And then there are some positions where you got to be on site, so I think and again, that stat's kind of in the middle. It's a little bit below 50. So I guess, that's representative of it. That, yeah, I think that's just the way it is. Sometimes you got to work on site and sometimes, you don't. And again, it's about, identifying the right talent. And if there are individuals who really don't want to be on site and they want to work from home, so that that would make a difference depending on the job.
Yeah, I know for you, one of your favorite things to do is help Company A select a leadership candidate who can help and transform the dynamics of their organization and by delivering sort of measurable and exceptional results, my friend, which can lead to sort of transformational impact, 5 years later. So I'm curious why that's so important to you and why you're passionate about that specifically. What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's really nice to see things work, to see things work out favorably. The stats are, I don't have the exact stat, but most businesses don't make it. And so, for me and what I do, and I think, when I look back on the placements that I've made and the clients that I've worked with, I would like to contribute to success and to seeing visions realized. And I think that it's a win-win. When a company succeeds, the people who work in the organization should succeed also. So that's, otherwise, that's why it's important. Otherwise, what job am I doing? Shuffling. If I'm not looking to do that, then I'm just shuffling people. And that wouldn't really lead for my own career. It wouldn't have led to the longevity that I've had in my career or the satisfaction and the friendships that I've made and the relationships that I've built over the course of my career.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marci, I'm also curious to ask you about individuals with disabilities because, as you know, outside of hosting this podcast, I also talk to businesses about the importance of hiring folks with disabilities. But most recent study conducted by the Centers for American Progress, they found that individuals without disabilities were 3 times more likely to be employed than their disabled counterparts. And on average, when we look at the number of people without disabilities who were employed as recently as 2023, the study found that 65.8% of people with disabilities were employed or without disabilities were employed compared to 22.8% of people with disabilities who were employed. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how we can raise the amount of people with disabilities who are employed and give them an equal and representative shot on being successful in the workforce. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that it's important and we should raise awareness and we should get it done. Organizations should look at diversity, and part of diversity is considering people with disabilities the same way that they would consider people that seemingly don't have disabilities. And even when we use that term, people are people and we're all different and we all have abilities to contribute. And it's understanding the people and recognizing their abilities and utilizing them. And that should be part of that should be part of a strategy.
Yeah,
Because if we're going to be if we're a society and we're going to be civilized, then we have to recognize that everybody has to contribute, and that we have to give opportunities for people to contribute, even if they don't don't have the same abilities that we have, that other have. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology.
yeah, and it also provides a competitive advantage to organizations because people with disabilities are problem solvers each and every day, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. They are problem solvers and creative and all, and they're human beings with every possibility as any other person. We all, we all have our strengths and our, and that's what teams are for, where somebody is a strong problem solver, maybe somebody else collects the knowledge, and that's what teams are for. Not everybody has to be able to do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we had when I worked at the Canadian or the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. One of the sayings that we had was, "You get more done through collaboration," right?
Always. That's when the genius happens. That's why collab genius is called that, because that's what the genius happens when people collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marci, I'm curious to ask you, with all of your experience in the changing landscape of today's job market and job recruiting process, what steps do you think that job seekers specifically can take to stand out when they submit resumes or go through an interview process? What are your thoughts there?
I think they can position themselves as team players. I think that's one of the things that we do here at Collab Genius. And my partner, Shelly Lynham, she's a team performance coach, and she also coaches and mentors individuals. And it's changing the mindset from I did this and I did that to I collaborated with, and just presenting themselves and showcasing their ability to collaborate. So that ability to understand other people, understand vision, and then to contribute. So their contributions. So that's something that job seekers can recognize. And when the job seeker reads the position description, they should really, and if it's not obvious, because a lot of descriptions aren't written really the best, but if they're not sure, it's not obvious from the job description, to ask, what role does this position play on the team? How will this position contribute to the other members of the team and to the goals of the team and to the organization? And then if they ask that question, then they could reframe their answers to answer those questions, to showcase how they can then fill that role.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that would make a big difference, or I know it does make a big difference. Because when you're hiring, you want to know, how's this person going to help me? How's this person going to help my organization? Going through a whole litany of what the person's done in the past doesn't really tell the story of how they're going to come in and help this organization and help this team and work with this team where they are now and where they want to get to.
Absolutely. And Marci, I've got two questions left for you. The first, my friend, has to do with, I know you live in Florida now, down there in Miami, but I know that you have Canadian roots, my friend. So what do you think is the best part about being Canadian, and what parts of Canadian culture have you tried to sort of implement or influence others with down there in Florida, my friend? I'm curious.
Well, I think we discussed this. Hockey is definitely a big part of being Canadian. And
Absolutely, yeah.
my son played hockey in Toronto for many years, and he continues to play here on a team. Funny enough, the rink is called Rink on the Beach. So
Oh,
whenever we get there, I kind of chuckle. But I'll be watching the game tonight, and I'm definitely going to be rooting for Canada. And so that's certainly something that's stuck with me. I think that's one thing. I mean, yeah,
well, of course you can't be Canadian without embracing some form of hockey, right?
exactly.
Absolutely. And, Marcy, my final question is how I end all of my podcasts, my friend. And this is by asking you, my friend, at the end of your life, or if I was to throw you a lifetime achievement party, and I wanted your best friends or those who know you best to give a toast about you in terms of your life and legacy. How do you want that to be defined, my friend?
Oh, that's really a tough and interesting question. I think standing up for what I believe in, walking the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always call it edging your own fingerprints of difference into the sand, right?
Yeah, exactly. Making a difference, not doing harm. I mean, there's no such thing as perfection, but really every day trying my best.
Well,
And being a mom, raising a good, like I have a boy, but raising my son and raising a nice human being, that's being a good parent, being a good mom, that's very important to me, because being a parent is a huge responsibility, and I've always known that. Growing up, with parents that maybe weren't the best parents, I don't know the better way to put it, but yeah, so I think that's really important. So I like to be known for having been a good mom, having been a good friend, good partner for my husband, a good person to work with,
and paying it for,
moderator.
yeah, and paying it forward, absolutely. And
Yeah.
Marcia, I'm curious if people want to get connected with you personally or collab genius. What's the best way they can do that?
Well, they can get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Marci Schnapp. And, so they can connect with me through LinkedIn. They can go to my website, collabgenius.io. They can contact me through my website or through LinkedIn. Those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, I really enjoyed this extensive and interactive conversation about human resources, leadership, organizational culture, and everything in between, my friend. I think you're doing great work in the space, and it was an honor to engage in conversation with you. And I want to thank you for being here this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I really appreciate you having me on the show. And I thought your questions were really thoughtful. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to answer your questions and be a part of your show. So thank you so much.